Next, we're going to show you all the components that make up the trailer net install for the van trailers. So we're going to start out with our same 4G LTE device, but the difference between this one and what we put on the dollies is it has a solar panel. So otherwise, it's all virtually the same. It has Bluetooth, the big, large capacity 10.6 amp hour battery, and it has the same connectivity, RS-485 and GPIOs that the dolly product has, but again, it has a solar panel. That's the biggest difference. So it mounts on this mounting bracket. So we'll show you how this mounts. It's got a VHB back. It rivets onto the nose, and then this simply bolts to the bracket. So we use a blind aluminum 3/16 rivet. So it's a closed-in rivet, so there's no water ingress. This component ties into this harness, has the same connector, which is a IP67 12-pin CN Lenco connector, and all of our connections are made in the nose box, and they're all color-coded to the wires that we're going to connect. So this once it's into the nose box, obviously you're going to get your power and your ground from the nose box. We're also going to make our RS-485 connection for the bus that runs to the back of the trailer for the receiver that PSI uses. So that entails running a wire from the front to the back. So this is 40 feet of wire, so we're going to show you how to run that to the back. This receiver is actually going to be in the back near the bogie area. So the key to this is you want the receiver in close proximity with your transmitters on your tires. Okay, this is the PSI repeater, so it's important that this is on there because this amplifies the signal from the transmitters that are on the trailer. So we build up the TTMA 5-pin connector and we power it, so it's a real easy plug-and-play device. Then we have a tank sensor, similar. It's exactly the same process that we use for the dolly, but this is a sensor that goes on the tank to measure the tank pressure. And then this is our ABS reader module, so this is also connected to the nose box, so it's power ground, and this is connected to our UART in the cable. So inside the nose box, we're going to connect to the ATIS fault lamp using this connector. Again, no splicing, just plug and play. We're going to supply the nuts that connect the ring terminals onto into the nose box. So instead of having to take off the 1032 nuts, we'll give you new nuts from Phillips. And of course, we're going to supply all the ring terminals and shrink wrap butt connectors that go with this. Now we have 4 axles, so we're going to have 4 transmitters that are going to go on the wheel end. So this wheel end will connect to these end cap sensors. So we're going to show you how that process works. So we're using so now we have 8 wheels and tires. So these are the inner wheel flow-through sensors with the transmitters on them. These are for the outer wheel for the transmitters. Again, these are pre-programmed to the receiver, so all of that will be seamless. All of these components are what makes up the trailer net install for the van trailers. Okay, this video is installing our trailer net solar device. So we're going to talk through this step by step. First step is William. We're going to install this on the nose of this trailer. So the device, the best placement for this device is directly above the nose box with an easy route from the harness to the nose box. So we're going to start by cleaning the surface. It uses a VHB mounting bracket and then it's riveted. So we're just going to clean off the surface, and then because we have a nice straight seam, the mounting bracket is going to go directly against the seam, mounted on the face of or flush to the bottom or the top of the pan. Okay, next, once you've attached the bracket, we're going to drill the 6 3/16 rivet holes out. Okay, once we've got them drilled out, we're going to install the 6 3/16 closed-in blind rivets. We use a cordless rivet gun for this normally, but if you're in a shop, you can certainly use air as well. Okay, before installing the TrailerNet solar device, we're going to cut the chain that holds the end cap dust cover on. That's not needed when it becomes tethered. We install the device harness, and then we'll install the device over the studs and install the 4 nuts. And we'll tighten those in a cross pattern. It uses a 8mm deep socket. Be careful not to over torque the nuts. Okay, next we're going to open the nose box and insert the main harness into the nose box. On the Phillips iBox, that's a 3/8. You can use the same 3/8 socket on the nuts. So there's a slit that's not used right in the center that you can easily push this main harness. Okay, when routing the main harness cable, we want to go on the back side of the rest of the train of harnesses. Okay, we can go ahead and leave this for now, and before we finish anything, we're going to run the wire from the rear of the trailer. That's the RS-45 wire with the receiver up into the nose box before we make all our connections. The first step on installing the wheel end sensors is to make sure you release all of the pressure from the air tank and from the axles. So to release the pressure from the axles, you disconnect the hose from the PSI control box. So the next step after you release all the air out of the system is to take off the end caps. So you want to make sure and take the air hoses off the end cap first, and then we're going to drain the oil out of the end cap. Okay, so we're going to release the fitting for the air out of the center. Next, we're going to add the oil drain bucket underneath the end cap to capture all the oil. We want to make sure and keep this as clean as possible because you're going to reuse the oil. These are all 1/2-inch bolts, so should all come out pretty easy. Okay, you want to hang on to it and then remove your towel so you capture all the oil and keep the oil clean. Okay, take a 5/8 socket to remove the fitting. Then we're going to take the slide hammer to remove the end cap. Screw it in at least 4 turns before you turn it all the way tight, and it's removing the end cap. So we're going to replace that end cap with a new end cap, making sure you clean the entire surface for any burrs, debris. It's sealed with an O-ring. Take a wire brush and clean the surface. Make sure you cover up your oil. Okay, take your finger and make sure it's a nice, clean, smooth surface. I'm going to remove the old gasket and we're going to replace that with a new gasket. Okay, to start your drilling process, we're going to want to start with a pilot drill. So once you drill the pilot, then you can go to the 7/16 drill bit. Okay, this process is drilling and tapping of the axle. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have the location closest to the where the spring is, so that the length is correct out to the wheel end. So we've already drilled the pilot hole, and now we're drilling the 7/16 hole. So we want to use slow speed drilling that axle out. So once the axle is drilled with the 7/16 bit, then we're going to tap it for the sensor. You always want to make sure you use a lot of lubricant during the drilling process, and also the tapping, so it doesn't gall. Now that you've drilled your 7/16 hole, insert the tap with the ratchet and carefully start the tap, making sure it's straight. Go in very slowly. You never want to break a tap off in an axle. If it starts to get a little bit tight, go ahead and back it off so that you remove the filings. Run your tap all the way through so you got nice clean threads. Again, once it gets tight, back it off. Don't try and force it. So because this is a taper thread, you only want to go in about a 1/2 inch with your tap, and then you run your sensor in and it'll tighten up completely. Okay, now the next step is going to be feeding the wire into the axle. So we're going to put our thread tape on the sensor and feed the wire into the hole and tighten up the sensor. So adding a piece of fish tape onto the wires, the easiest, so we're going to make sure we can pull that out to the end. So you can use zip ties or fish tape or whatever you can find, that'll easily go into that axle. And right now the wheel end is off, so you'll just feed this out through the wheel end to pull this wire through. Okay, we're going to tighten, go ahead, and now that you've run the sensor wire through, going to tighten the sensor into the axle. Again, make sure that surface is clean before you put the plug in. So, okay, next step is we got to make sure we blow out the axle, getting rid of all the debris. Okay, next we're going to use an isopropyl alcohol pad to clean the surface completely so the Loctite seals. Okay, take the 1/8 inch Allen out of the end of the cap. We're going to put the thermal couple in there and tighten it up. You don't put Loctite on that? Make sure it's not over the hole. And I'm going to apply the Loctite. So make sure you use blue Loctite, not red. Start it, then you're going to use the same. Use and drive that end cap in all the way flush. Got to make sure it's all the way flush. It's driven all the way in. Reinsert the fitting. Reinsert the fitting in the end of the cap. clean the surface of the gasket area on both surfaces and then install a new gasket. Take a gasket scraper to the surface, make sure it's clean of all the old gasket. Now when you reinstall this, you want to make sure the fitting is on the top, so when you refill the oil, it makes it easy to get the oil in and the level correct. Put a couple bolts in to keep the gasket in place. Reinstall all the bolts and tighten them down. Okay, now that all the bolts are tight, you can reinstall your air fitting. This is just hand tight. Now you can reinstall your PSI flow through hoses. And we're going to take the fitting out of the top. I'm going to refill the oil reservoir from the same oil that you removed. Okay, there's a oil level. It's clear see-through, so you want to make sure the oil's at the top of the second line on the see-through end of this cap. Now, you're not going to pour it all the way in because you had some in there, right? Yeah. Okay, once it's at the fill line, you can reinstall your filler cap and then install the other flow-through hose, and that completes the install for this side of the axle. So we want to repeat this process for each axle. So the tank sensor on this trailer, we're going to use the same PPV valve, and we're going to just use the brass fitting and put the adapter in place and tie that pre-programmed transmitter in. Okay, this shot is feeding the RS-45 harness from where we just mounted the receiver all the way to the front coupler plate. The next step is installing the repeater. The repeater goes in line on the TTMA 5-pin connector. Now once we're going to go ahead and mount the repeater very close proximity to where the transmitters are. So within 10 feet of the farthest transmitter, and then we're going to run the wire from the very rear of the trailer all the way up to the front. So the easiest way on a Great Dane trailer, since there's a lot of room, is just to hand feed it all the way up to the coupler plate. Once we get to the coupler plate, then it gets a little tight, so we're going to use our fish tape, run it through the coupler plate access hole, and fish the wire up until you get it to the very front of the coupler plate. And then from there, running the coupler plate, running the wire up to the nose box. All right, next, after we run the wires through the coupler plate into the harness, we want to cut the harness to length. So once it's cut to length, we're going to remove the jacket and keep at least 6 inches of raw wire on both the RS-45 harness and on the main the device harness. Now that we have the jacket removed, the next thing we'll do is install the ABS reader. So we're going to prep the area right on the top side of the nose box for the VHB. It has a Velcro pad attached to it. Okay, ABS reader's in place. So once that's in place, then we're going to test the two fuse holders. So we have to use a fuse for both power sources. So we have blue for ABS and we have brown for our marker lights. So both of these will be fused. Okay, so next thing we're going to want to do is this is the RS485 harness. So these are all color coded. The only wire that we don't use is the brown wire. That one's in there in case you have an ATIS lamp in the rear. The wire is already there. Green and the black wire are RX, TX, RS485 data wires. The ground, and the white, of course, is ground. The red wire is our 3.3 output. So this is what's going to drive the power to the receiver. So the red is to connect it to the red on the main harness. So the next connection we're going to make is the ATIS lamp input. So that's the purple wire is the input for that. We're going to connect it to a 180 bullet connector that we have, and it's going to connect directly into the 180 bullet that's already there from Philips. Connect one end of the 180 bullet to that, and this bullet connector here runs to this lamp right here. So when this lamp is on, it triggers this input to go high, and that's what tells us that the ATIS lamp is on. Okay, we're going to tie to the two white wires together as a ground and put one ring terminal on for this ground. Go ahead and connect the two grounds just to get them out of the way. Okay, so the rest of those you're just going to put the barrel connectors on and heat shrink and connect all the color codes to the color codes. So this one is blue, this one is brown, everything else should be connected together. Okay, after the final install, everything is shrink wrapped. I just want to go through exactly how we did this. So these are the fuse connections. So blue is connected to a fuse holder going to the blue circuit. Brown is connected to the brown circuit, connected to brown in the main trailer harness. Red again is our GPIO wire that powers the receiver. These are our two data cables. These are connected black to black, green to green. This is our ABS reader. It is orange to orange and of course yellow to yellow. So everything, once it's all connected, you verified everything looks good. So that once we button this all up, we're going to put one P clamp on here and we're going to power it up and give it a test. Okay, after we've completed our install, I'll go ahead and hook the air up so that we can refill the tank and the axles. So I'm going to power it up with my little power supply. This only checks ABS and lights. So let's check for some visual faults first. So as soon as I turn on ABS, you'll notice that because the air tank is low, the PSI light is on. So we'll be monitoring this and make sure the light goes off. Okay, as you can also see on this side, the ABS lamp is still on. So the ABS lamp is supposed to turn off within a few seconds. So this lamp is still on. That indicates that we have a fault. So let's go ahead and look at the dashboard and see what we got.